Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be alive? Not just to breathe, wake up every day, complete tasks, and fill schedules, but to live, really live, with purpose, with the awareness that every moment could be the last. Death walks beside us in silence. Like a discreet shadow, it follows our every step, no matter how hard we try to ignore it. One day, it reveals itself, and when we think of death, we are forced to reflect on time and, inevitably, on the meaning of life. In Greek mythology, few tales portray this journey with such intensity as the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. It is not merely a love story. It is a mirror of our relationship with loss, with hope, and with the shadow we each carry within. Orpheus was a musician capable of enchanting all that existed. With his lyre, he made beasts lie down in peace, trees bow their branches, rivers change their course. His music reached not only the ears, but the soul. Yet destiny, relentless as time itself, tore from him the woman he loved most, Eurydice. Bitten by a serpent, she descended prematurely into the realm of the dead. And faced with unbearable grief, Orpheus made a decision few would dare: to descend alive into the underworld. Picture the scene: a man armed only with the power of music, entering the kingdom of Hades, where souls wander in silence, where black rivers carve through eternity, where every step echoes among shadows and laments. And yet, when Orpheus played, even the guardians of hell wept. Cerberus, the three-headed hound, lay down before the sound of the lyre. The Furies were soothed. And Hades himself, cold, implacable, granted Orpheus a rare gift, the chance to bring Eurydice back. But there was one condition. He must walk ahead of her, without ever looking back, until both reached the light of the living world. Think about that. What does this condition represent? How many times in life are we called to walk forward without looking back? How many times must we trust the unseen, that which we cannot control, without letting fear make us turn around? The myth of Orpheus is more than an ancient legend. It is a powerful reminder of our relationship with time, with loss, with anxiety, and with doubt. When we walk carrying our pain, how often do we feel the impulse to look back, to relive memories that can no longer be changed, to seek answers in moments that are gone? That is when we lose ourselves, because when Orpheus looks back, he loses Eurydice forever. And what do we lose when we give in to fear, to doubt, to the lack of trust in our path? In shadow psychology, Carl Jung reminds us, everything we avoid facing within ourselves will eventually appear in our lives as destiny. It's as if the underworld of Hades were not a distant place, but a reflection of our own unconscious mind. Every unresolved trauma, every pain we refuse to embrace, every emotion we suppress, all of them live within us, waiting for the moment to be heard. When Orpheus descends into Hades, he doesn't just face gods and monsters. He faces the weight of his own loss, his own shadow, his own fear of moving forward without certainty. And it's precisely there that the myth meets each of us, because all of us, at some point, are called to cross our own infernos, to walk through the darkness without guarantees, to trust that even without seeing the end of the tunnel, each step brings us closer to the light. But what happens when we fail, when we look back, when fear takes over? Perhaps we lose something, as Orpheus lost Eurydice, but perhaps we also discover a deeper truth, that life does not demand perfection. It demands awareness, and awareness only arises when we allow ourselves to face the shadow. Like Orpheus, we must learn to live with our losses, not as sentences of destruction, but as invitations to understand what truly matters in our journey. Orpheus continues his descent. The silence of the underworld is heavy, as if every shadow were an echo of past lives. Before him, the rivers of death intertwine, the Acheron, the river of pain, the Lethe, the river of forgetfulness, the Cocytus, the river of lamentation, and the Phlegethon, the river of fire. Each of these rivers holds a profound symbol. Chiron, with its dark current, represents the weight of inevitable suffering. Lethe, whose waters erase memory, symbolizes the escape from remembrance, the wish to forget what hurts. Cocytus is the endless cry of unresolved guilt. And Phlegethon, in its eternal flames, is the passion that burns when we fail to turn it into creation. But notice this, the underworld is not merely the place of the dead. It is a reflection of our psyche. How many times do we sail through our own inner Acheron, carrying pains we believe we cannot bear? How often do we wish to dive into Lethe, forgetting what wounds us, even if it's an essential part of who we are? Remain trapped in Cocytus, repeating in silence the guilt and regrets that prevent us from moving forward. And how often does Phlegethon, with its flames, mirror the excesses of the mind, anxiety, rage, obsessions that burn from within? In mythology, Hades reigns over all these rivers, not with violence, but with inevitability. He doesn't hunt, he doesn't kill, he waits, because sooner or later, all paths lead to him. Yet there is another presence that balances this darkness, Persephone, abducted by Hades. She spends part of the year in the world of the dead and part in the world of the living, bringing the seasons with her. It is because of Persephone that winter exists, but it is also because of her that spring returns. Here lies the key. The underworld is not only a place of endings, but also of transformation. Darkness is not only a fall, it is also a womb. It is in the stillness of winter that seeds learn to wait. It is in the shadow that rebirth is prepared. When we speak of mental health, it is no different. Depression, for instance, can be experienced as this inner winter, cold, silent, and often hopeless. But if we understand this state not as failure, but as passage, we can begin to see that even in darkness, something is gestating, a new vision, a new meaning, a new strength. Carl Jung once said that the shadow is not only what we reject within ourselves, but also the potential we have not yet dared to live. The descent of Orpheus, like Persephone's dwelling in the underworld, reminds us that true growth is only possible when we dare to visit those internal regions. How many times do we flee from our own shadows, from the sadness that knocks on the door, from the fear that paralyzes, from the loneliness that unsettles us, and by running away, we become slaves to these forces. But when we stop, when, like Orpheus, we have the courage to descend, we can transform pain into music, shadow into self-knowledge, loss into wisdom. See how this echoes in our daily lives. How many people today are drowning in a modern Lethe, using distractions, addictions, and digital noise to forget themselves? How many are trapped in Cocytus, replaying old mistakes, regrets, and unspoken words? How many are consumed by Phlegethon, living emotional intensities they cannot channel into creation and ending up lost in crisis? The myth is clear. The underworld is not punishment, it is reflection. And to reflect on it is to reflect on ourselves. In the journey of Orpheus, something touches us deeply. He descends into Hades, not for himself, but for love. And isn't that what moves us, too? We love so deeply that, at times, we accept walking through our darkest pain for the sake of what or whom we hold dear. But through that passage, I also discovered that the journey is about ourselves, about what we must learn, about the trust we must cultivate. For the true challenge of Orpheus was not to defeat monsters or rivers. It was to overcome himself, to trust, to walk, to believe without surrendering to the urge to look back. And so, we must ask ourselves, in which areas of our lives are we still looking back at the grief unhealed, the relationship that ended, the mistake we cannot forgive? Every glance backward keeps us bound to the underworld. Every conscious step, even in the dark, brings us closer to the light. Orpheus walks, the lyre pressed against his chest, trembles like an anxious heart. In this pact with Hades, there is a single, terrible condition. He must not look back. Eurydice will follow him silently until they reach the surface. But if Orpheus hesitates, if he turns before reaching the light, everything will vanish. This is the moment when the myth becomes psychological, because the look back is more than a gesture. It is the exact instant when doubt defeats trust. It is the surge of anxiety that visits us when we are one step away from completion. It is the inner voice whispering, "What if it fails? What if you're alone? What if none of this is real?" How many times in daily life do we repeat this gesture? We're progressing in therapy, and we stop, we begin a healthy habit, okay? And abandon it during the hardest week. A relationship begins to heal, okay? And we reopen the wound with the hand of distrust. Looking back is a trigger that reinstalls the past in the present, as if the shadow itself were saying, "I still rule you." Jung would say, the shadow tests consciousness every time we cross a threshold. During that test, anxiety raises its ghosts. You're not enough. You'll lose it. You can't do this. The inner underworld uses simple, lethal tricks: silence, ambiguity, delay. Delay is deadly for those who cannot wait. Delay makes time hurt. Delay corrodes trust. Orpheus climbs, step by step. The surface does not appear. The shadows seem to laugh softly. Eurydice follows, but her footsteps cannot be heard, okay? He must trust without proof. This is the training of the soul, okay? In grief, you keep breathing before feeling that life has returned, okay? In depression, you walk before motivation arrives, okay? In anxiety, you slow the body before the mind grows calm, okay? In every crossing, action precedes feeling. You keep listening to the lyre and walking, okay? Even without applause. You trust in presence, even without guarantees, okay? At the top of the stairway, a thread of light, the almost, okay? And almost is dangerous. How many relapses happen when we're almost free from compulsion? How many give up when they're almost defending their thesis, almost moving cities, almost asking for help? The almost invites us to validate fear. And once we validate fear, we turn our face. Orpheus stops. He feels the emptiness behind him. His body leans barely. His eyes search Eurydice. When he sees her, she's gone. It is not a moral punishment. It is a symbolic law. If I doubt the process, I destroy the process. If I interrupt trust, I interrupt creation. If I look back, I drag the past into the present, and the present collapses. The myth does not end in condemnation, okay? It ends in awareness. Orpheus discovers his fracture, the anxious impatience, the need for control, the inability to endure time. He teaches us that to love is not to control another's destiny, but to walk through one's own night without demanding guarantees. In therapy, this becomes small, daily practices, training tolerance for uncertainty, staying with doubt without needing to answer it. Gradual exposure to fear, climbing steps with a racing heart, and continuing anyway. Cultivating routines of trust, repeated gestures that anchor the body when the mind is noisy. Water, breathing, walking, writing. Orpheus fails, and failure does not erase the value of the journey. It reveals the precise point where we must learn to wait, to sustain desire without suffocating it, to love without possessing. Perhaps this is the golden question. On which step of your life are you almost and about to look back? If you can name that step, you can choose to stay facing the light. Let us descend one level deeper into the four labors of the soul as it crosses the psychic underworld. They are not official parts of the Orpheus myth, but they emerge from its symbolic reading. 1. Endure the silence. In Hades, what speaks is the unspoken. In life, the silence of dawn, the unanswered message, the reply that never comes. All of it summons ghosts. Practice. Stabilize the body. Feet grounded, spine upright, breathing that descends to the abdomen. Without an anchored body, the mind delivers us to the Casitas of lamentation. 2. Accept legitimate pain. Acheron is inevitable. Loss happens. Let's cultivate constant anesthesia. Lethe steals memory and meaning. Let's practice. Grieve with tenderness. Ritualize farewell. Write unsent letters. Revisit places of goodbye. Acknowledge that sadness proves something once mattered deeply. 3. Transmute passion into creation. Phlegethon burns. If we do not compose with the fire consumes us. Practice a daily creative channel. 10 minutes for the lyre. Literally, music, or metaphorically, drawing, dance, writing, clay. Contained fire becomes light. 4. Reconcile with your own shadow. Persephone departs and returns. So does the shadow. It doesn't vanish. It cycles. It's practice. Shadow journal once a week. Note repeated behaviors that cause pain and ask, what is this part of me trying to protect? Shadow is not an enemy. It is a guardian of primal needs. Now, let us look at Hades and Persephone as archetypes of mental health. Hades is the lord of boundaries. Without him, nothing ends. Without endings, there are no beginnings. Much exhaustion arises from the refusal to close cycles, outdated jobs, exhausted loves, obsolete versions of ourselves. Learning to say enough is an act of sanity. Persephone is the cycle itself. As she descends and returns. Seasonal depressions, mood shifts, moments of withdrawal, all can be recognized as psychic seasons. When we name the season, we stop blaming ourselves for being in winter, and we prepare spring through small, regular, compassionate gestures. In everyday life, if the mind screams, shrink the scale. Do what fits in 15 minutes. If willpower fades, rely on the body. Natural light, water, a short walk. If guilt bites, answer gently. I did what was possible today. If anxiety races, rub against reality. Touch objects. Name 5 colors around you. Count the steps to the door. The myth also teaches boundaries. When Orpheus sings, beasts grow still, trees bend. Stones listen, but there is one realm his music cannot command, the will of another. In life, trying to save those who do not wish to be saved pulls us into someone else's underworld. A healthy commitment. I may descend out of love, but I must not lose myself there. So the question arises, what boundaries must you set so that your song does not burn in the phlegethon of excess? Perhaps it means going to bed earlier. Perhaps it means saying no to those who take without giving. Perhaps it means asking for help, a gesture of humility that widens the heart. Let us return to the surface for a moment. To speak of time, the myth is a dialogue with Kronos. Orpheus wants to hurry spring. He wants the light to arrive now. A life has its own timings. Gestation, maturation, harvest. Haste makes us look back. Trust keeps us facing the light. In therapy and in life, time heals when we cooperate with it. To cooperate with time is to ritualize the morning 3 gestures: water, light, movement. Honor the night, reduce screens, prepare for sleep. Mark pauses. The pause is where music breathes. Without pause, even the lyre goes out of tune. There's a detail rarely mentioned. Eurydice is bitten by a serpent. The serpent is a double symbol: death and cure, poison and remedy. In shadow psychology, what wounds us can also heal us once transformed. It's the panic that knocks us down, once understood, teaches us to build landing routes. The loneliness that aches, once listened to, teaches us to build nourishing bonds. Shame, when illuminated, reveals betrayed values and invites realignment. Direct practice, antidote map. For every recurring symptom, right beside it, a gesture of care that works, even when nothing else does. Example, when anxiety rises, cold water on hands, 30 slow steps. Grounding phrase on paper. Example, when sadness weighs heavy, warm shower, bridge playlist, message to a key friend. The rule is simple. Do it small, do it now, and repeat it like learning a song. It's also an ethical vertex in the myth. One does not bargain with Hades without a price. The price for Orpheus was trust without sight. Ours, often, is to honor boundaries and responsibilities, taking medication as prescribed, attending sessions, keeping commitments with our own health. Hades does not punish, he charges coherence. And when we speak of the meaning of life, the music of Orpheus does not fix the world, it re-enchants it. Meaning is not a brilliant concept, it is a thread you hold on to daily. For some, it is the care of a child. For others, a research project, a garden, a cause, a quiet craft. The thread must be within reach of the hand. If meaning is too far, it becomes an unreachable ideal. If it's close, it becomes a repeated gesture that saves. Finally, memento mori whispers once more. To remember, death is not to worship the end, it is to sharpen presence. But I accept that time is finite. Breakfast gains fragrance. The eyes of those I love gain contour, and an ordinary conversation turns to gold. Awareness of death is the spring of care. We are almost at the top of the staircase. Light exists, shadow too. Integration is not choosing one against the other. It is carrying both as one who holds day and night in the same palm. Practical proposal inspired by Orpheus's journey. The lyre ritual, 10 daily minutes. Awaken the body, 2 minutes. Feet grounded. Stretch the neck and shoulders. Breathe, 4 to 6. Inhale, 4. Exhale, 6. Name the season, 2 minutes. Today, my inner weather is autumn, winter, spring. Choose a thread, 3 minutes. What is today's smallest act of meaning? It's a page, an email, watering plants, calling someone. Close with concrete gratitude, 3 minutes. 3 visible, specific, ungrand things. Emotional first aid script for inner storms. Pause. Sit down, back, supported, ground. Describe 5 objects, 4 textures, 3 sounds, 2 scents, 1 taste. Find rhythm, square breathing, 4-4-4-4, 2 minutes. Choose one small action that is 100% under your control right now. Conversations with Hades boundaries. What is ended and I still pretend it hasn't? What needs a clear no today? From which modern lethe do I drink endless scrolling, alcohol, overwork, and what clean water could I choose instead? Dialogues with Persephone cycles. What part of me descends every year? Which seeds do I keep during my inner winter? What returns within me, and how can I welcome it better this time? If you care for someone who is in their underworld, remember, no one is pulled from darkness by force. Accompany them, offer discreet light, keep your hand available, and encourage professional care. But protect your own lyre. Those who care must also have a season of rest. Now, return to the final image. Orpheus failed, but his music remained. The trees remember. The stones remember. We remember. And the final question, what will be your song? Not the perfect one, the possible one. The one you sustain even when no one applauds. 'Cause it is that song that stitches your days, that organizes your inner rivers, that guides you step by step out of Hades. Let us live with awareness of the limit and care for the present moment. And when fear begs you to look back, answer with a gesture of trust. Keep going. Here ends another crossing. Remember, memento mori. We are all travelers of shadows, and each conscious step is a flame that illuminates eternity.